Hi there. Welcome to my backyard. I have a story for you. It dates back many years before I was a storyteller. I was a potter, and I made my living going to festivals and shows selling pots. This is a story from that time. It goes like this. I heard Quigley long before I saw him, clacking his way up the steps of David's porch. I braced myself. I didn't know what to expect. The day before, on the long dirt drive up to his house, I encountered a rattlesnake. It reared up, ready to strike at my van. It was terrifying. The door pushed open. A 200-pound pig came waddling into the room. "Oh, that's Quigley," David said. "You have a pet pig?" "Well, we thought he was a Vietnamese pot-belly pig, and he was so little and cute when we got him. But he just grew and grew, and, well, I guess they sold us just a plain old regular pig. And he's always hungry. He wants you to pet him." I reached out and stroked his back. It was like petting a scrub brush that had lost most of its bristles. Finally, David said, "That's enough, Quigley. Out." Quigley stayed put. "Does he understand commands?" "Yes, out, Quigley." And he pushed Quigley out the door. David disappeared into the kitchen and came out with 2 mugs of coffee. We spread a road map out on the dining room table and charted our route to Atlanta, Georgia. We were going to the Atlanta Convention Center for a trade show, a prestigious trade show. David said to me, I got a lot riding on this show. I really need to make some money." I said, "Me too. I got a ton of bills at home." We clinked coffee cups, and then David said, "You ready?" "Yeah, let's do it." We climbed into our vans. "You take the lead," I called, and I followed him up that dirt road till we made it out onto the open highway. We reached Atlanta at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and stepped into the Marriott Hotel. It was all marble. David whispered, "Pretty hotsy-totsy." "Yeah." I felt like the hillbilly cousin. I had spilled coffee on my T-shirt, and David had been eating peanuts while we were driving and shelling them, and he had a crotch full of peanut shell dust. But they gave us a room. Setup was the next day, and the show opened in the evening. David's display was right across the aisle from mine. His pots were as huge as mine were petite, great big 4 and 5 foot tall vessels. Designers and decorators flocked to his display. But by the end of the evening, he hadn't sold anything, hadn't taken any orders, and neither had I. And that was the signature of the show for the next 3 days. On Saturday night, which was the 3rd day of a very disappointing show, David said, "We need to have some fun. Let's go dancing." Oh, that sounded good. He said, "There's this place called the Underground. There's food, there's dancing, there's music. We can get there by trolley." Well, trolley was just an additional charm. So we cleaned ourselves up, found the stop, and when the trolley came, we got on board. It must have been an off hour. We were the only passengers. We sat up front and talked to the driver. A few minutes later, he made another stop, and another passenger climbed on. He was a tall, thin man wearing a khaki jacket. He held on to the rail with one hand. I couldn't really see his face. It was mainly covered by a hood. He kept his other hand in his pocket. He leaned over toward the driver. "Smith Street." "I'm sorry, sir. This trolley doesn't go to Smith Street." "Smith Street," the man said. "Sir, I'd take you there if I could, but this trolley doesn't go to Smith Street." "Smith Street. Take me to Smith Street. I got a gun. And he wiggled something in his pocket. David and I looked at each other, not knowing what to expect. But the driver was very calm. He actually spoke to the man in conspiratorial tones. Okay, man, I'm going to take you to Smith Street. But you know what? You should tell these two guys to move to the back of the trolley. You don't want them getting in your way. The man thought about it. Yeah. You two, you move to the back. So David and I walked to the back of the trolley and sat down on the long seat opposite the rear doors, which were open. And the trolley began to move, slowly. I looked toward the driver, and I could see in his rear view mirror that he was looking at us. His eyes kept darting sideways. I nudged David, but he had seen it too. He grabbed my hand. He said, "Get ready. He's going to let us off." The trolley slowed down, and when it was at barely a crawl, David grabbed me, pushed me forward. I stumbled down those steps, off the trolley, right into the arms of a perfect stranger. He wrapped his arms around me. He wouldn't let me go. I began to scream. He was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't understand what he was saying over the sound of my own voice. And then he jerked his jacket open, and I saw his Atlanta policeman's shield. Then I looked toward the front of the trolley, and I saw 2 more policemen escorting the trolley jacker away. They frisked him. His gun turned out to be a banana. I said to our policeman, "How did you know? Was there a secret button on the steering wheel or something?" He wasn't giving away any trade secrets. He ignored my question and said, "I've called a taxi. It should be here any minute." And sure enough, a taxi arrived. David and I climbed in the back seat. "Where to?" the driver said. "Back to the Marriott," we answered simultaneously. We'd had enough excitement for one evening. The next day was Sunday, the last day of the show. By 12 o'clock, David still had not sold anything or even taken an order. And in a rather dramatic move, he climbed into one of his pots, wiggled his shoulders underneath the neck so just his head was sticking out, and he had a sign on it. It said, "I'm not coming out of this pot until someone buys something." Well, that got him some attention. People came to talk to the potter in the pot. Other artists came by to schmooze away the afternoon, but by 4 o'clock he still hadn't sold anything, and he acknowledged defeat. But when he tried to get out of the pot, he couldn't feel his legs, and his arms and shoulders had gone kind of numb too. He looked at me. I said, "What's wrong, David?" And he mouthed, "I'm stuck." Well, I'm normally a compassionate person. I don't enjoy other people's problems, but it must have been fatigue-driven hysteria. I broke out laughing. The artist on either side of me said, "What's so funny?" I said, "It's David. He's stuck in his pot." It was like dominoes. Word spread down the aisle, and with it, laughter sprung out of every display booth. Finally, a security guard came over. He looked at David, took a walkie-talkie out of his pocket and talked into it, and 2 minutes later, a little mini lift truck arrived, and they hoisted David out of his pot to the applause of all the rest of us onlookers. We packed down. We loaded up our displays. We drove out into the Atlanta night. We found a cheapy motel on the far side of town and settled in, each of us silently absorbing our disappointment. In the morning, we resumed our journey. When we crossed the Florida border, we stopped at the Stuckey's. There was a long line at the counter. I said to a woman, "Is something going on?" She said, "Oh, it's the lottery. You know, this is the closest place that us folks from Georgia can come and buy Florida lottery tickets. And you know, the jackpot is $13 million. David and I looked at each other. We bought 2 tickets. We promised each other that we would share our winnings. We fantasized over a cup of coffee about all the things we were going to do with all that money. Then we got into our vans. He headed back to Micanopy, and I drove on to Winter Park, Florida. About a week later, David called me. "Hey, did you ever check your ticket?" "Oh, yeah, David, I did. I didn't have a single number. I didn't win anything. How about you?" "Oh, I was so excited," he said. "I got the first 5 numbers, but the 6th one was off, so I didn't win anything." It took me a moment to think about what he was saying. Could he possibly not know, that that ticket was worth a lot of money? "David, what did you do with your winning ticket?" "Winning? No, I didn't win anything." And I know it was petulant, but I tore it up. I threw it on the compost, and Quigley ate it. I didn't have the heart to tell him he had thrown away thousands of dollars. Well, I look back on that time of my life. I wouldn't wish that kind of financial stress on anyone, but we survived. We more than survived. We compensated for our poverty with an abundance of creativity. We celebrated our successes and we dealt with our disappointments. The children grew up. They went to school. They embarked on their own journeys in life. David relocated to Massachusetts and became a successful potter up there. I eventually changed careers. But all those years that I spent bent over my potter's wheel taught me that shape is created from the inside out, just like the values that flavor my memories.